let's talk a little bit about, let's get into the business stuff a little bit, right? So first of all, you guys have a podcast.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the podcast.
Podcast, man, leadership, management. I think we're toying around with names right now, man. And so it's like, and I was going to actually talk to you about that later on.
Absolutely.
You know, I kind of like locked in with Gerard. You know what I'm saying? I like that. I mean, we're kicking it around, but it's mainly going to be, man. And here's the format. The format's going to be something that happened in my corporate or real estate, mainly corporate. Youthful. I say youthful because I was a young management person. Like, young. Looking back, man, there was no way somebody should have given me the keys to like a $58 million payroll and like a $150 million bill. There's no way on God's green earth that
they were smart.
Amen. But here's the thing. A lot of the stories are what I screwed up really bad or what my boss screwed up really bad and how it relates to real life and where the management or leadership breakdown was. Because it typically comes down to leadership and management. But every time you have a problem, it's people or process, right? And it's typically both when it's a problem, right? So people or process, or Rocky Rum, my old manager told me, it's either the people or the process or both. And it's usually both. And the people create the process. And then so usually the management breakdown is that. So the podcast is basically going to be about a lot of, like I said, really bad, catastrophic, crazy stuff that's happened, or something that's happened in my youth, you know, as a real estate transaction or in a daycare or something like that. That's something that just went sideways. And then everybody can relate to that because somebody did the same thing. It's just on a smaller scale. But when you're running a, you know, Fortune 500 company, part of it, it's exacerbated a lot.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Would you I think it was a really important part in your journey because like the great thing about those big corporations is they've already, like they've gone through startup, they've made all the crazy mistakes, they've learned to scale, especially a company, a behemoth like Under Armour. You know, I would say that was probably the best education to start your own, to go into business for yourself like you guys are doing and to run that household like you're doing. That was probably like, you probably use stuff you learn there every day.
Well, it goes back further than that.
Okay.
So I worked at UPS from 1997 to 2010. It's the best education. I learned more there than anywhere else in my life.
All right, come on.
And then what I learned about that was I learned teamwork. I learned diversity because all the teams were diverse. And I learned accountability. Man, do you understand that? I remember, I was talking to this dude yesterday. We would do 185,000 to 200,000 packages a night. Basically, all these trucks would come in. Like, what we got, you know, we read the paper. Like, all right, man, we have 86 loads tonight, and we have 200,000 packages. If you missed 100, okay, what's that math? 200,000.
Like half a percent,
freaking
maybe?
Math, right?
Yeah,
you failed, bro. Like you lost. I had to write myself up about what we did wrong. There's 500 people in the building, right? So I got 500 employees. We're gonna do 200,000 boxes, and if I miss 100, I gotta write myself up. I gotta call the region and tell them what a failure I was and what I'm gonna do to make sure that I never do that again.
Holy cow!
And I could probably count on my hand how many times that happened. And then when it did happen, if there was 108 boxes, we'd all stand around the boxes. And I'd be like, all right, man, who's taking these 8 to Virginia or to get in your car? We ain't missing 100. So what happened the next day? We tightened it up, right? So we didn't miss whatever it was. And there was no quit. I learned contingencies. And here's the thing I really learned, man. I learned about how to manage and how to lead because I would learn from what not to do. Because in a culture like that, I mean, it's a very demanding culture, but you would have certain times and certain managers where it was like, man, I will never treat anybody like that. You know, never. Ever in 1,000 years would I treat anybody like that. I mean, I had one time. Can I tell you a story, man?
Yeah, come on.
Dude.
It's story time, baby.
All right, man. Here we go. So one time, right? Here, listen to this. All right, so I'm a supervisor of, we're going to go with this one. I was a supervisor. He's probably going to get really mad at me, too. He's going to know what I'm talking about. So I'm in charge. This is 2003. So I'm like 20 something years old, right? And I'm in charge of like all of the delivery of like half of Maryland, right? College Park, Silver Spring, all the stuff. And my job was to make sure that all the boxes got delivered. And so I'm 20 something years old. These drivers are 45, 50, the old dudes, right? 40-year-old driver, the dude been driving for 20 years. Like I'm that old dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 20 something years old. These dudes, I ain't even driven before, right? So I had to teach them. I had to basically earn their respect to get them to do a job that I couldn't see them doing because they were all lead. They would drive.
Yeah.
So my whole thing was, man, what can I do for these guys? Let me make sure, man, my chair is broken. Okay, man, let me give you a new chair, right? So it'll be a new hand cart. So then I basically I won them over to say, I'm going to get you whatever you want, man. Just deliver the boxes, bro. And then I'd have to learn and train, but I learned the job. So one time, man, the packages that get delivered like the next day, they got to be done by 10:30 in the morning. So one morning, there is this guy delivering to University of Maryland, and he left like 50. So basically, I had to make sure everybody got out. That was my first job. So I'm walking up and down the belt, kicking drivers out that's what they used to say. Kicking drivers out the building. Get out, go. Because they only got allowed to stay in the building for 10 minutes. Because dude's making $40 an hour. So every minute he's inside the building not delivering, we're wasting money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kicking guys out. There's a route sitting here. I'm short, right? So I'm like, man, I got to drive that route today. So after I kicked out half the building, there was a tote of boxes that had to be delivered by 10:30. So I was like, man, I'm going to throw these in my car, man, because there's nobody to get these. So I delivered the boxes or whatever. Go to Burger King, grab something to eat. All the boxes, I get all of them off by 10:30, man, I'm cool. Man, I walk back in the building around noon. I'm walking, having a good time. And I looked at the top of the belt, and the dude from the Maryland route left like 100 friggin' next day errors sitting right there.
No.
Right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I got to tell my boss that this happened. Mm-hmm. So he comes in, comes to his meeting, got his jacket on his hand. Hey, G, man, how's it going, man? Hey, man, I need to talk to you. Right? So now I had to learn, I got to break bad news, right? And again, if you miss 100 boxes on this other thing, but for these boxes, if you miss one, these people paid like $100 to get this thing by 10:30 in the morning. You miss one,
yeah,
you're screwed, man. It's like 100. I'm like, hey, bro, mistake happened this morning. These got missed. He was like, well, that's impossible. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, because it's your job to make sure that this doesn't happen. I was like, yeah, man, but I had to leave and I had to take this truck out of here and go deliver the stuff. He was like, so you're telling me that you just didn't do what you're supposed to do? I was like, I'm sorry. So I turned my back and started walking to the office, right? And then there's like this, right? So it's an authorized shipping outlet, UPS authorized shipping outlet. So I'm walking towards the sign, and as I'm walking towards it, it explodes. Kapoosh! And I turn around, and he's like in a throwing motion because he threw a water bottle at my head, and it whizzed by my head. It smashed the sign, right? And I looked at him, and this dude comes up to me and grabs me by my shirt and pushes me against the wall. And he was like, if I got to do your job, what do I need you for?
Yeah.
And I was like, he said, do it. You want to hit me? Do it. Do it. And I looked at him. He's like, that's what I thought. He walked off.
Wow.
And everybody was like, man, you going to let him talk to you like that? I was like, I was wrong, bro. Like, I totally was wrong.
Good for you.
But guess what happened? I never did that. My job, what he was told me was, my job is to run the joint, right? Get everything out. You're the last fireman in the building, right? Deploy the troops. And then if you have to, then you step in, right?
Bro.
So, man, but I learned that because I never threw a water bottle at anybody's head either. You know what I'm saying? So man, that was a good one.
It's a great lesson though, like, because again, we talk about it a lot in here. My favorite thing about Nick Saban and Bill Belichick is the three words they got everywhere, which is just do your job.
That's it.
And if you don't do your job and somebody has to fill in, then they didn't get to do their job. And that's a perfect example.
That, man. And what do I need? That I used to hate that, man. And one thing I used to hate, And one thing my other boss used to say, which was a good accountability lesson, was when somebody would fail, right? And they'd be like, man, but I tried my best. I'd be like, oh, man, here we go. He goes, man, if that's your best, you might want to think about doing something else.
That's so true, though.
I was like, but that's how it was, man. So, and everybody's like, man, when was that? Like 1975? Like, nah, man, it was 1997. But the thing was, man, is it drove home. So imagine going and doing that, right? And then you step out and you got to like negotiate a real estate contract. And then the lender is saying, oh, I'm waiting on the underwriter. Hey, man, I don't want to hear about any of that. You know what I'm saying? So there's a different level that's one thing I will say, man, is there's a different level of accountability and there's a no fail like attitude, man. Like so for me, like it would keep me up. And I used to go to work, and that's the reason why I left was I had to make a decision. Yeah. The decision I made was I'd go to work at 10 p.m. I had to be at work at 9 p.m. And I got off at 6 in the morning. And then I got moved to another shift and that was my thing too, is I always worked nights. Okay. Because that's where all the problems are. Yeah. And then I'd fix something and then they moved me to days for like a week. And then something would get busted somewhere else. And then they'd move me back to that. So I was going to work, man, at 1 a.m. And then I had a boss, rest in peace. This dude, but I love him to death, man. He's the worst boss of all time, right? I used to get off, if I go to work at 1 a.m., what time should I get off? 10, right? So I'd dispatch the whole building. Everybody be done by 9 o'clock or so. But then this dude would call a meeting at 11:30. And I'm like, man, I've been here for almost 12 hours. You want to call me at 11:30, 12 o'clock? Without any regard to so I was like, okay, I'll make a mental note of that to never extend people's day like that. Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
Well, it's you can learn your lessons. And by the way, the guy that threw the water bottle, have you ever seen him do that before or since? Did he do anything like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, this dude, man, I saw him throw a hand cart one time. This dude was wild, man. But you know what? Though,
it worked for him.
But that was acceptable. No, this is acceptable behavior. You know what I mean? But people outside of that culture, just like when they see the coach, there was a coach, right, on TV that was jacking the kid up, and they're like, "Oh, he put his hands on him." I'm like, "That's cool, man." I got no problem with that. I have no problem with tough love. That's the problem that I see today, man. Is people don't want to hear that their baby's ugly, right? So the thing is, man, if it's bad, let them know it's bad. Now, you probably shouldn't put your hands on people, stuff like that. But at the same time, man, I've had bosses. I had a guy look me in my face and was like, "Do you need this job?" He said, "Because you're about to lose it." Now, today, people were like, "Oh my God, he threatened my job, this and that." But you know what? He was honest with me.
That's right.
Hey, man, you're in danger of losing this job. If Ron said, man, this is 2001. If you ever leave anything out here like this again, it'll be the last time. He said, you get one shot to do it, because after that, I'm gonna fire you. You understand me? I was like, yes, sir. Never had the problem again.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So tough love is good, man.
I love it. I freaking love it. Do your job, baby. Just do your job.